Good news, everybody! I have acquired a hardtop for my Miata. A somewhat rare factory piece that is so coveted today, these routinely sell for over $2,000 in good condition. I was able to get this from a friend for a really good price, but it does need a little bit of work. When I first picked up the hardtop, the paint was severely faded. There was a horrible old peeling window tint in the back window, and it had some damage, especially on this back edge. I couldn't help myself and peeled off as much of the window tint as I could and tried to polish the top, but as you can see, the paint is just really far gone. I've thought about painting it myself, but to be honest, it's just not feasible with my setup. It would take a lot of time and money to get set up, and I have neighbors close to me, so it'd be really rude of me to be spraying paint right next to them. To be honest, I just don't really want to. The problem is, body shop prices in California right now are pretty wild. I got quotes ranging from $1,200 all the way up to $2,500 to prep and paint this hardtop. So I don't want to spend that much. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for me to try Maaco. In case you're not familiar, Maaco is a franchise chain of budget body shops all across North America. Like any franchise, the quality can vary quite a bit by location, and there's a lot of horror stories out there about Maaco. But my theory is, if you can find one with a good reputation, which there happens to be one near me in Oxnard, California, and you go for the highest tier option, which is base coat, clear coat with wet sanding and buffing, I think there's a chance it could actually turn out pretty well. So I went down and got a quote for that, and I got a quote for $425. So that is fantastic. The key here is going to be me doing as much preparation as possible. So that means probably pulling the back window out, pulling off all the seals that would potentially be in the way of them painting the hardtop and having it look good. Because they're not going to do any of that, they would just tape around all the seals and window and everything. So the more I do, the better. So I thought this would be an interesting video to show not only what kind of quality you can get from Maaco, at least this one, and also how to pull the window out and reinstall it. Hopefully that will go smoothly. I don't know. But we're going to learn together. Okay, the hardest part of this whole operation is going to be dealing with the back window, especially because I'm not a professional glass installer. Just got a couple of cheap tools from Harbor Freight, and hopefully I can accomplish this without breaking anything. This glass is held in with 6 nuts that you can get to from the inside, and then the glass is glued in with a bead of urethane. We'll have to cut that urethane, but first we take this outer molding off. It's pretty petrified, so it helps to use some pliers to get it started. Okay, there it is. Okay, that outer molding or seal is out. That was fairly easy, but it's pretty dirty behind there. And I think I can also see the urethane. So I think what I'll do next is use a bit of soapy water, clean out some of this dirt, and it'll help lubricate our cutting tool. First of all, I'm gonna try to remove these nuts on the inside, because once I start cutting the urethane, this window might be ready to release. So there's 3 on each side, 8 millimeters, and a little washer. So here's this fancy tool I got from Harbor Freight for about 15 bucks. It's basically just a nice strong 90-degree angled blade on a stick with a nice pull handle so you can get plenty of leverage. and you can go either direction with it. Just flip the handle around, and it came with an extra blade. So should work pretty well for what we're doing. Let's try. I also got this suction cup handle, which just gives me something to hold on to. Okay, all my soapy water dried up already, so I might just put a little bit more where I'm working. Seems like a good idea. Luckily, I don't have to worry too much about scratching the paint because that's going to be redone. One of the hardest things about using this tool is just getting it started and getting it underneath the glass, especially because this hardtop is not metal, meaning it's soft and easy to gouge. This whole time I assumed it was made of fiberglass, but during the project I actually learned it's made of a material called SMC, or sheet molded compound. It's similar to fiberglass in that it uses glass fiber and resin, but it also adds polyester fabric and is made with a compression process to make it stronger. Anyway, once you finally get this tool in, it works pretty well. I don't love this, it's kind of freaky, but it is working. I have to pull pretty hard. Am I breathing hard? Yeah. Things were going smoothly until I got to one of these nubs on the bottom side of the glass. It spaces the glass up the proper amount, which is good, but I couldn't get the tool around it. So I had to remove it and gouge the panel a little bit more and start over at the top, going the other way. There we go. Oof. Get in there. Okay. There we go. Last bit here. Up to this nub that gave me so much trouble. And that should be it. Can I take this out without gouging everything? Well, yeah. I can pretty much lift the glass now. I think it's ready. Here goes nothing. Oh, yep. It's still held in by something. There we go. Wow. There we go. It's free. Oh, wow. Man, this is a pretty thin piece. Gotta be careful. Well, that is a relief to have that out in one piece. Have it on a piece of foam over here. But I'm surprised at how much urethane is in here, so this is gonna be pretty fun to scrape out. There's also this stick-on foam seal, which I believe when we go to reinstall actually goes on the glass side, which goes on pretty uniformly. Maybe I should measure what that gap is, so once I clean it off I'll know where to put the new one, but it's pretty uniform all the way around. I don't know how much it would have cost to pay a professional to do this. May have been worth it, but you know, it's fun to learn how to do stuff, I guess, as long as nothing breaks. Well, it's a relief to have the window out in one piece. I think that was the scariest part of this whole project, so hopefully things will be easy from here. I think reinstallation is going to be the second scariest part, but for now I just have a lot of cleanup to do and get this thing ready to take to the paint shop. To clean up the old urethane, I started out by using some metal scraping tools, but quickly realized that those were too much and they were gouging the hardtop pretty easily. So I switched over to a plastic scraper, which I sharpened up a bit, which was painstaking but worked pretty well. Now, from what I've heard, if I was only replacing the window, it's actually fine to leave this old urethane behind because new urethane sticks really well to old urethane. But because I'm getting the hardtop painted, I thought it would be best to get it all clean. Well, that was kind of tedious, but it went fine. You can see where I started out using metal tools. It really gouged into the fiberglass. Kind of bad, but then when I switched over to plastic, definitely worked a lot better with less damage. Just took a little time and patience. Gonna leave these corner pieces in. I think they kind of help keep the urethane in while you're gluing things together. So probably a good idea to keep that. Still need to clean up some of it, but I think at this stage I'm gonna take the top off the car, and then I can start taking off some of the other seals around the bottom. Grab it like this. Oh yeah. Okay. So I don't think there's too much that I need to remove in order to get this painted. The front edge doesn't have anything in the way, they can just tape here, but these side seals come off pretty easily with a couple screws in the front and 2 screws in the back, and then they just lift out of the metal tracks. The metal tracks themselves can be unscrewed. And it doesn't hurt to label them just to make sure you remember which side they go on. With those side seals off, there's plenty of room for the paint shop to mask and hopefully not get overspray where it shouldn't be. In hindsight, I should have probably gone a step further and taken the rear seal out, but that whole thing is glued in and I kind of didn't want to deal with it. If I had removed it, I would be able to get these chrome pieces off, but I figured the paint shop can just tape around them. Next, these little corner protectors came off and they're glued down. This brittle old rear protector strip was the last thing to come off, and then I went to town cleaning up the remaining urethane with a Scotch-Brite pad. Once it was all clean, I found a spot where I had actually cut into the hardtop with that blade tool, so I mixed up some JB Weld and attempted a self-repair. And with that, I felt like I was ready to drop it off at Maaco. Okay, we're on the road to Oxnard. Next stop, Maaco. It's about an hour drive. It's going to be a bit noisy with no back window and no side seals, but that's okay. I actually brought some earplugs in case it gets too loud, because I'm an old man now. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how this is going to go. So. After a nice uneventful drive along the coast, I ended up at Maaco. And everybody there was super nice, the drop-off was easy. There was even a guy there who used to have a Miata, so he was excited to see this. And while I was there, they were painting a fire truck, which was cool to see. Anyway, they said it would take a week or two, so I headed back home to work on the back window. I picked up some better plastic scraping tools and set to work scraping away the remaining urethane around the glass. The worst part, however, was dealing with all the little remaining bits of window tint that were stuck in between these little dots around the border of the glass. I used some soapy water and a razor blade and just spent a lot of time scraping away every last bit of it. To make it even more fun, these defroster lines are in the way. You don't want to cut these, so for this area I ended up using some fine steel wool to clean off the remaining adhesive. It took longer than I thought, but eventually the glass was nice and clean and ready to reinstall when I get the top back. A couple weeks after I dropped it off, I got the call that the hardtop was ready to pick up, so I headed back down. And as soon as I went inside, I could see it hiding in the back room. When I was there this time, they were painting a school bus. Anyway, I went in the back room to take a better look, and man, it looks really good. So I paid my bill, which ended up being about 20 bucks more than the initial quote, which wasn't a big deal. Got it back on the car with a little help, and headed back home. Well, I'm back, and the paint turned out really good. I'm impressed. I'm actually pretty picky when it comes to this kind of thing, and for a discount paint job, this looks great. Are there some little flaws here and there? Sure, but they're tiny. You have to look really hard to find them. Can you see little areas where they rushed a little, didn't take their time masking? Sure, but again, it's not in highly visible areas, very minor. I'll show you a few of these flaws just so you know what to expect from a good Maaco, but looks fantastic. Here's where that big chip was repaired, and you can't even really tell. Hopefully it'll hold up over time. As for these plastic corner pieces, they just painted right over them. They also painted further into the window opening than I would have liked, so I'll have to do a bit of black touch-up paint around these edges. These chrome pieces got a little bit of sanding scratches on them. Not super noticeable, but it's another reason I probably should have removed these or at least taped them off myself. And of course the one rubber seal I didn't take off, the big one that goes around the bottom, got a decent amount of overspray on it. All that being said, considering this cost about a third of what the next cheapest body shop quoted me, I really can't complain. This looks great. So I'm gonna have to do some touching up in this window border. Try to touch up any overspray. There's only a tiny bit, not much at all. But first, let's take this thing off and put the seals back in. Okay, we're good. Every moving blanket that I own on a piece of cardboard. Yeah. Oh, that corner is touching the ground. Whoops. After cleaning up a bit of overspray on the chrome, I went to install this brand new Mazda Genuine edge protector. It has all the right cutouts to go around the tight areas, comes in a nice glossy finish, and yeah, you could probably find something generic that would work just as well, but it's always nice to have correct parts. Anyway, I started out on these difficult tight spots where those cutouts were, and everything fell into place from there. These corner pieces were originally glued on with some kind of contact adhesive. I'll have to come back and do that, but for now I'm just pressing them in place. This turned out really nice, but unfortunately it split in one place. This piece is actually more brittle than I expected, so this is unfortunate, but the rest of it looks good. Also down here you can see where Maaco didn't quite finish polishing. Next I embarked on a mission of stupidity to black out the window border. I masked off the area with some tape, scuffed it up, and then I thought I was so talented with a piece of cardboard and a spray can that I could spray paint and not get any overspray on my fresh red paint. Well, obviously this wasn't the case, and I screwed up a little bit. This is where we introduce the most helpful tool for the rest of this project, solvent. More specifically, naphtha. Naphtha! It's a petroleum-based solvent that should be the top ingredient in whichever solvent you're using for this job. It's gonna come in real handy later when I need to clean up the window urethane, but even for quickly cleaning up overspray, it works great. The one I have on hand is this SEM plastic and leather prep. There's also SEM Solve, or you can use 3M General Adhesive Cleaner. You can look up the ingredients by going to the manufacturer's website and looking through the safety data sheet. Anyway, the next day I finished up with a brush, having learned my lesson. Now the time has come to reinstall the back window. But first, I needed to figure out if this rear molding was going to go on with the glass or after. Luckily, I have a copy of the factory service manual, which is really helpful, and they actually have a section on how to replace the window on a hardtop. They go into a great level of detail with lots of diagrams, And they say to put the molding on immediately after the glass while the urethane is still wet, and that's what holds it in. It barely wraps around the glass at all, so this makes sense. Okay, I got the trash can workbench set up. I think I'm ready to actually begin the process of putting this in. Kind of scary, but we can do it. Consulting the factory workshop manual, it turns out this foam seal, or dam as they call it, goes onto the glass 8 millimeters from the edge. You can see the remnants of the urethane there, and then the foam seal goes just on the other edge of it. So it's a nice guideline that I can follow. Well, you can't do too much cleaning. This is going to be pretty sticky stuff, I can tell. This piece is pretty straightforward to install. You just peel away the backing as you go and press it into place without stretching it out. There's plenty of material to go around. The main thing this is for is actually to prevent extra urethane from squeezing out onto the glass further than it should. That's why they call it a dam. That was easy, but now comes the hard part. So here's the urethane I'm going to be using. It's this DuPont or Dow Chemical Beta Seal U418HV. The HV means high viscosity, which means it's thick, which should make it pretty easy to work with and not run, so it should stay where I put it. It's a primerless to glass, meaning you don't need to put any primer on the glass, but you do need to put it on the painted surface. So this is the primer right here. It comes in this little applicator. So I'll put that onto the hardtop. And it came with a single tip. Probably won't need 2 tubes, but I got 2 just to be safe. And finally, you need a strong caulking gun with at least a 26:1 thrust ratio, which I've never heard that term before, and it made me laugh quite a bit. But luckily this one has the proper thrust ratio, so we can really thrust the urethane. So we should have no problem thrusting the urethane. Anyway, I wiped down the window flange with some wax and grease remover, pierced the lid on the primer bottle, and saturated the applicator before going around and applying the primer. Well, it mostly went fine. It was a little bit stressful. I did get a couple of small runs, and I was like, well, that'll be fine, that'll get covered up. Other than that, primer's on. I guess it's time for urethane. First I need to puncture the thing. There we go. This needs to be a V shape, so it goes on the glass like a pyramid. And the Mazda manual actually tells you exactly how big of a pyramid. They want 11 millimeters. In fact, the Mazda manual is so good, they actually have an exact diagram of how to cut the nozzle. I didn't quite get this right, but should be close enough. Close enough. Should be interesting. Let's put this on. Load it up. And wish me luck. This is scary. Just broke the seal. Let's try to do this and not make a massive mess. They say to go at 90 degrees. Nice. Applying the urethane turned out to be much harder than I expected. I'm going to speed through most of this, but slow down for commentary. Yeah, I'm glad I got a good caulking gun. It's definitely helping, having this much leverage. Whew, my hand's getting tired already. hand is really tired. I am freaking out, man. Don't freak out. You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Whew. Getting quite a excess blob on the side there. Can kind of smooth it out though. Dude, I think I need more thrust ratio than this. Holy shit. Oh, no, we're all right. We're all right. Whew. This is a tough spot. Okay, good. Well, it's not the prettiest bead in the world, but it is continuous, and it seems like it should be enough urethane. I'm not really sure. If you're a pro glass installer watching this, let me know how I did. Okay, it's the moment of truth. And I know I need to work quickly, but I'm so high-strung right now and stressed out from doing this. And even the exertion of pulling on that handle, I feel like I just need to take a deep breath for a second, because I don't want to be all shaky when I'm putting this in and end up making a mess. So, a couple deep breaths. Okay, let's pick it up. Oh my gosh, I'm shaking. Oh, I'm so nervous. This is kind of how I did it. Dude, I don't like this. Massive mess. Totally missed. Oh my god, I totally missed. Oh, that was really bad. Oh. Whew. Okay, it's in position. Quick cleanup time. That I'm not too worried about, but stuff I can see, I don't want to see it, you know what I mean? Oof, that's brutal. Holy shit. Okay, how long do I have to mess with this? Should I bolt it in first? Maybe. Even with a good solvent, this urethane is so thick and gooey, it takes several passes to get rid of it. I didn't have a lot of time to work though, because I wanted to put the outer molding in before the stuff dries. So this does have some little notches in it in strategic places, so I'll have to try to line those up. There's no real secret to installing this molding. There's a very small lip that wraps around the glass, but it's mainly held in with the extra urethane that should have oozed around the edge of the glass. I was finding that I may not have used enough urethane in some places, but we'll deal with that a little later. And then that needs to slide into that. Well, I think I pulled it off. I can't say I really enjoyed this. It was so stressful installing the glass and dealing with the urethane. It's really difficult to squeeze it out of the gun, and so messy and gooey. I'm really glad I had that solvent on hand. But even still, I'm not sure if I used enough of it. I'm not sure if it wrapped around enough to really grab onto this molding. I'm especially concerned about these lower corners where there's a tight turn. I guess time will tell, but hey, overall it actually turned out pretty nice, so reasonably successful. The next day my doubts were confirmed and I found these lower corners were completely loose. Luckily there was still plenty of urethane left in the tube, so I squeezed some out onto a piece of cardboard and used a popsicle stick to spread it into all the areas where the molding was loose. Naturally, this made a bit of a mess again, so back out came the solvent. Told you it would come in handy. Lastly, I used a bit of tape to hold the molding down just to make sure it would dry in the correct position, and I did this on both sides. After enough time had gone by for that to dry, I took the hardtop off one more time so I could finally reinstall the side seals. With the hardtop back on, I could finally adjust the latches, make sure everything's fitting nicely, and check that the window seals look reasonably good. Now it's time for the water test. Let's give it a quick wash and see if any water gets in. Well, this driver's side window seal could use a little adjustment, or maybe the glass itself, but more importantly, the back window stayed totally dry. But wait, just when you thought I was done, I opened up these chrome cover plates to find that these adjustable latches were loose. I actually opened these so I could replace the rubber pads at the bottom, but I'm glad I found this. There's a whole procedure to adjusting these, which I'm not entirely sure of the best way to do it, but I think they go as far forward as they can go so the top fits nice and snug forward to back. Anyway, let's replace these rubber pads. As you can see, these are just held in with 3 little nubs that pull through the holes in the chrome latch, and they just snap into place. Then I could somewhat adjust these bushings and make sure they're tight before closing up the latches and calling this project pretty much done. Well, I hate to admit it, but that was about 4 or 5 months ago. I've really been dragging my feet finishing this edit, so sorry about that, but if you've made it this far in the video, I appreciate you. The good news is, in the meantime, I've installed a hardtop hoist in my garage, and you can see that in a video over on the NA Miata YouTube channel. But anyways, I'm ready to wrap this thing up, so let's hop in the car, go up to my favorite mountain road, and wrap this whole thing up like a nice enchilada. Well, that sounds pretty good. Well, at the beginning of all this, I told you I'd break down the cost of everything, so let's get into it. The real victory of this whole thing was the purchase price of the hardtop from my friend, $600. Big shout out to my buddy Todd for giving me a great deal on this. The Maaco paint job, $447. Seals and parts from Mazda, $157. Tools from Harbor Freight, $41. Caulking gun from Amazon, $32. The chemicals, meaning urethane and glass cleaner, $58, for a grand total of $1,335. Excluding the purchase of the hardtop, the whole refurbishment only cost $735. So I think I did pretty well. Well, I think this turned out really good. Maaco did a great job. I had realistic expectations going into it. And if anything, I should have taken a little more time to mask off the chrome and maybe take the lower rear seal out, because you really can't trust them to be careful with masking and stuff, even in the best of times. But other than that, the paint turned out great. I'm glad I did the top tier option. And this whole project was a good example of like where to make compromises and where to do things yourself and save money. And doing the glass myself, I'm glad I did it to learn, but it wasn't that fun. I'm not sure if I would recommend it. If I did this again, I would maybe hire a glass professional, because that was a lot of work. But all things considered, the top turned out awesome. I'm super happy with it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm gonna be doing more Miata stuff, as usual, random schedule, but stay tuned and we'll find out what's next. Thanks for watching.